So for those of you who are new to the Figma community, this is basically a group of creators who would like to connect and learn from each other. We operate in three formats. One is the city-based group where designers from a region would collaborate and work together. Another, especially for students, the campus groups where students from design colleges or universities can collaborate. And another one is interest-based groups where people of similar interests can get together and collaborate and learn together. So the design enthusiasts are free to join either one or even all three categories of these. And for those of you who've been following the community closely so far, you must be knowing that Divami Design Labs is now the ecosystem partner for Friends of Figma Hyderabad chapter. So yes, this is the first collaborative event of Divami Design Labs with the Figma community of Hyderabad. And for today's session, we have with us Mr. Rakesh, who is the Principal Design Manager at Divami Design Labs. He's worked on 100 plus digital products for brands like Google, HCL, Infosys, etc. over a span of 9 plus years. And he's also been mentoring so many designers, including me. It's a privilege, sir. And in this session, he'll be sharing with us his experience of working on SaaS products. So followed by this, we'll also be having a Q&A session where all of us get a chance to interact and know more about him and his work. Welcome, sir. Thank you for accepting the invite. You can take over now.
Thank you, Advaita. Thank you all for joining the session. I'm very happy to be the part of this, the community, and taking the session on the design for the SaaS. As Advaita has mentioned that I got a chance to work on multiple projects on the SaaS industry and enterprise and legacy application. I want this session to be an like moral learning kind of a thing where I want to share my experience, what I gained while designing those applications is what the intent that I want to convey in this platform, in this session actually. Just I want to know how many are clear about the what is SaaS and why the design is extremely important while we're working on the SaaS applications. So the SaaS is like a service as software as a service, right? Because it's not a typical, like typically a decade back or in mostly as 5 to 6 years back, most of the applications are on-prem, that where we have to install or set up the application in a client space where a lot more installation, hardware limitations, everything will come into the picture. The SaaS is a revolutionary model where everything is done like an on-demand kind of a thing, where whenever the user wants, they can turn it on and turn it off kind of a model. And they can also customize the services like in the entire SaaS package or an application. I'm not interested in all the 10 features what they're offering. I'm interested in only 3 features. So it's giving a lot more flexibility to the user to enable and configure what features or services he is interested in. So there are a lot more advantage, like why the people are inclined toward the SaaS and why the SaaS market is a lot more popular compared to the other models as the delivery models of a product industry. So the mainly, if you consider, these are the key aspects why the everyone is looking toward the SaaS model. One is like on-demand functionality, as we discussed, right? Even the application might be having in 10 plus features or modules. But as a customer or a client, I might be interested in 3 primary features, which I'm going to use day in, day out. So I can only sign up for those features. So that is an on-demand kind of functionality, which are ultimately directly proportional to the cost flexibility. Because if I'm no matter what, if I'm not going to use the rest of the 3 features, so it's additional cost for the client. So by giving an on-demand functionality, it automatically directly proportional to the cost equivalent. And I said, right, space requirement. Because now in the previous thing, enterprise or on-prem applications where I need to give a dedicated hardware or a server for that. Because now it's a cloud-based application, the storage is maintained by the space, that I needed, how much RAM I need to process that. All that is not, no, as a end user, we don't need to worry about those things. The performance, predictability, and everything is taken care by the SaaS providers. So considering these aspects, the SaaS model has been a popular delivery model, and everyone is looking to a SaaS product and SaaSifying their product into the market. And according to the stats, right, almost 90% of the products are going to be SaaSified by the end of the 2028 is what the one of the metrics is telling. Right now, it was around the 70% or 65%, 75%, but the SaaSification is happening in a very rapid phase. Now, what makes an outstanding product, right? Because even though you have an innovative idea and you have a lot more performance capabilities, or functionally your product is very high, but ultimately, if your interface or experience that you're providing to the end customer and how your application looks like, the appeal or attractive user interface is not there, your product is not going to be a standout in the market. Because if you see that any SaaS product, there are a number of competitors exist in the market. Until unless if you satisfy the customer in the first glance with your experience, there are high chance of the customer leaving the product and going for another thing. So the user interface and user experience are extremely important for any SaaS product to be success. This logic is not only for the SaaS, whatever the design that we are doing, whatever the product is, it's an enterprise or a legacy application redesign, or it can be an B2C or a B2B, doesn't matter. Wherever you are applying, the user experience and the user interface are extremely important for any product success. Now, if you ask me why, how the UX and UI plays a key role in the product success, because it's everything, because everything is directly related to the customer churn rate, because churn rate is nothing but how many customers are leaving the product, subscribed, and they're not showing the interest. So why? Because we are not able to meet the expectations of the customers who trusted at the beginning of the journey, and they feel like our product or is not fulfilling their needs. Because of those reasons, the customer droppage will be there. When the customer droppage is high, then the product is not successful. That is the one key metrics any SaaS product is going to measure. What is the churn rate of their product? They want to reduce the churn rate as low as possible. They want to make it as a zero. They really want that. So our UX and UI will play that role to make sure that the users are engaged to the product or adapted to the product with the experience that we are providing as a designers we are providing. Now, quick time to value. The quick time to value is like everyone want to see the rapid output, ROI kind of a thing. What, because I invest a lot more onto the product or an application, what is the output I'm getting? So we need to show as a designers on when you're working on any workflow, what time to value that we can provide to the user. Like a turnaround time. For example, there is a workflow which usually takes in 2 minutes to complete the job. Within our user experience thing, are we reducing the 2 minutes to 1 minute or less than a minute? So everything is a value. So when you are working on a single workflow or a single page, we need to understand what value we are bringing onto the platform. So the quick time to value is extremely important. That's what as a UX and UI is going to play a key role. They increase the customer retention because directly it's related to the churn rate. It's increasing. Already I have an X number of customers. I want to make sure X number of customers is going to renew for the next year for the subscription. I want to increase that number on a regular way. The product or experience the system is giving, there the chances are very high to leave the product. As we discussed, right, there is a lot more demand on the SaaS. Any feature or any product you have said, there are a number of competitors exist in the market. So we need to make sure at any point of time the customer is not satisfied with our experience. So the experience can be a number of ways. They have an issue on the things, they raise a ticket. The customer support will also come under the experience part of it. Or when they're doing certain tasks, they suddenly stuck. They don't know, they're in a clueless situation where how to proceed to the next step. Giving a guided experience to complete the task is also part of a customer experience. So that can be covered in n number of ways with our UX and UI. So that's the reason it's directly proportional. So we can play a lot with the UX and UI. We can engage the user longer time to stick to the product. It's directly proportional to the renewal rate, reducing the churn rate, bringing the quick time to value, and a lot more features that we can add. Now, how to create a great design experience and what key factors to consider? Because there are a lot more, right? Because SaaS applications, the first thing that I will start with, like simplifying the registration process. So because every SaaS application, the intent behind the SaaS application is to given every user can quickly register themselves onto the platform and start working on it. That is the SaaSification model. For example, if you are asking too many questions before onboarding user to the platform, that itself will backfire the user. User is not interested to answer too many questions before knowing about the product. So I will take an analogy here. For example, there is a relative who come to our home, right? So because before asking them, before allowing them to come inside the home, we are asking the too many questions. What is the purpose you came? Whom you want to meet? So this will annoy the people who come to the home, right? First, we need to allow them with a minimal set of questions. Once the users are in, we need to ease them, and then we have a lot more opportunity during the journey to get more information about that user. Similarly here, when the user was interested in the product and he want to try the product, we should ask the minimal information, as much as minimal information as possible, to quickly onboard them onto the platform. And during the process of the journey, quick registration process is a key for any SaaS application, how quickly you can onboard the user onto the platform. This is the first step that we have to keep in mind when we are doing the SaaS application, the registration process. And then now, the quick onboarding. Even though the registration process, we are just asking the few questions. Now, in order to use the application, there are some basic steps that we have to configure configure the application and make it ready for the user to do. But in the quick onboarding process, we need to give some status. How much percentage of the onboarding is done, or how many steps are left to complete my onboarding process, and giving a guided experience to the user. Like, what is this step is meant for? Is it a mandatory or an optional step for me? Can I skip? If I do these things, what are the suggestions? Giving a contextual help to the user, why the step is needed. So this kind of an experience will make the users feel like we are not asking too many questions. It's give a seamless experience to the user to complete their job. So once a successful registration, we need to guide them to complete their onboarding process so that we are setting a stage for them to use the application in a better way. Now we are onboarded the user with all the required configuration. Now we need to guide them, because now he's a first time user to the platform and he don't have any expectations what the application is going to do. So we need to give an interface. It's not a regular dashboard. It's an onboarding dashboard to the first time users, which is helping the giving capabilities or explaining what the services that the platform can provide to them, or where to start. Because most of the SaaS applications will give an interface to the user, like a whiteboard canvas kind of a thing. The user has to struggle, what I can do. Now I'm there, but what I can do on now. So if you provide an experience to the user, like, okay, now you successfully onboarded onto the platform, these are the things that you can do. Either you can do task 1, task 2, task 3, or you can go and explore the things. So we are guiding the user with what are the possible things that he can do on onboarding, upon onboarding, first time onboarding things. And this is extremely important once on board. Otherwise, the user will feel like I'm in a clueless situation. I'm onboarded, but I'm not sure what to do and how to proceed to the next step. So onboarding dashboards will ease their anxiety and make sure that to the task what they intended to do. Now the next key aspect that we have to consider while we are designing the SaaS application is how intuitive is our navigation and how upfront we are showing the primary actions to the user. In this example, if you see that we are highlighting the what are the key things that he can do on the platform, on an onboarding dashboard itself. There are a couple of things, but upfront we are seeing telling that these are the capabilities that the platform has. Whatever you want, you can pick. We are exposing the all the CTAs upfront to the user and giving a quick interface to the user to do the things. So this kind of an intuitive will give that upfront, giving the possibilities of primary actions that you can perform on the platform will use. So we have to make sure that how our navigation patterns are defined on a SaaS application and how we are allowing the user to come back to the home page or come back to the previous state. So, and at any point of time, we need to mention the where the user is in, because context, maintaining the context where the user is in is extremely important for the users while taking the journey. So this is the other important aspect we need to consider, the intuitive and easy to use navigations. Next one is like, this is a very key aspect because as I said, right, onboarding, before onboarding, we are not asking too many questions, right? We are just asking the basic information which are needed for the user to onboard. But in the process of onboarding journey, we need to know about the user a lot. If we until unless we know about the user, we won't be able to give a personalized experience to the users. Because here in this screen, I just want to give an example or an intent telling that what kind of an identify, we are trying to identify the user, like whether he's an individual business owner or a small business owner, because the definitions of the individual, small and medium will vary from the user to user. If you simply highlight, the intent won't be coming out. So we need to explain the user telling that what the small business is meant for. So here in this case, the small business is like for 50 to 10 forms, if they're filling on an yearly basis, that is going to be small. So we need to establish the context and we need to understand the user, because based on this decision, some of the interfaces or workflows are going to change in your platform. If it is a large enterprise and you're giving in the one by one adding the task things, it's not intuitive, they will be annoying. And if it is a small or individual business, giving a bulk upload and all that will not solve their problem because they're doing only one to 10 forms on a year. So knowing about the users whom we are catering and what is the purpose is extremely important to provide an better and best user interface experience to the user. And also the contextual supports, like whenever they feel like I want to understand further more about this categories, then we need to provide an interface. How can I get to that, reach to that documentation? Like a contextual helps, like giving that what it mean, why the form filling will come, what is the time period below. So giving some facts about why they have to provide that information. And if they want to drill down and see that what is that meant for, we need to give a contextual interface, contextual help to the user. And the next one, because value proposition, as we discussed, right, until unless we show some value on each and every page or workflow, the user will have a lot more anxiety. What is an ROI I'm getting in it? What is the value I'm getting in it? Either the value, it can be in terms of highlighting the features which are hidden inside the box, or value can be in terms of saving the time, turnaround time to complete the task. So here we need to tell that whatever the task you're going to accomplish or complete the journey, we have to give an indication to the user. It's a 5-step process or a 6-step process, or in these steps, I'm going to talk about this kind of information. So it's giving an expectations, right? We are setting the right expectations to the user, what they're going to do in the journey. That is the first aspect that we have to consider when you're talking about the value. The second aspect, like what value that we are bringing, because most of the services, right, SaaS applications, as I said that initially I thought that as a customer, I don't need any API services kind of a thing, any future, because the application is giving about 10 modules. I feel like for my enterprise or for my company, my users, I am interested to have only 8 features at the time of I'm subscribing. But we need to tell that what the capabilities have that application has, but we should not give like a different context. We need to talk about those capabilities where it is more relevant. situations. We need to identify the what is the right context to nudge the user to subscribe to that feature. So that is also an adding a value to the customer as well as for the business. So in this case, the three things are like upfront available to the user because it's under the basic plan or an enterprise plan. They have an ability to APS services is not in the subscription plan what they have done. But knowing the frequency of their doing the things or uploading the forms, or by nudging, we are telling the system has an intelligence or the contextual way of telling that we have another feature which will help to quickly integrate your things. If you have something having in a different third-party server, you can use the API service to bring the data. So giving that contextual help or a contextual nudge to the user in the, and this is extremely important in the value proposition that will directly propose or relate to the value. They see the value, okay, and giving a quick CTA to subscribe that or explore more about, know more about how the API service is going to help that, or is that really needed for me? Because giving that contextual information and a contextual help will help the user to take a decision whether to go with or not. Other one is like the progress, like how much progress that has been completed so far in that journey. That will also engage the user because it's the 5 step. I don't know whether the step will take an X percentage of time or why. So giving that percentage of completion, right, will give an accomplishment user. So in the value, we need to see at any point of time on any page or a workflow, we need to talk or think about what value we are bringing here. And the giving that contextual information is also a value because giving an help as a separate tab or will not solve my problem because it's where again it's a bigger problem for me. I have to go to the help thing. I have to go through the particular topic. By that time, I will be losing the context. So giving that contextual help is also an adding value to the page or a workflow. If you see here, they having a trouble deciding is a hyperlink. It will directly go to an help or a support contextual help. It can be an FAQs or it can be an audio or it can be a video tutorial, something that will help them to quickly get how can it resolve that. So that is the reason the value proposition is extremely important when we are defining the SaaS interface or designing the SaaS interface. Moving to the next step, like in the SaaS, this is the common problem I've observed on most of the applications that I have done, right? The one is like I have completed a task or a workflow, the journey. Then what is the next step that I can do? In the SaaS, always the journey associated with the next steps. Done one task, what are the next step that I can do with that? So we need to guide the user in all possible ways. Once you accomplish this thing, these are the three things that you can do. In this case, we have raised a payer form. So now we are telling that these are the next, either you go and pay the bill so that it will be started for the process. It will go to the in process kind of a thing. Or if you want to add another recipient, you can go and add. Or otherwise go to the dashboard where it is a give the consolidated view of what you want. So in the SaaS, right, we should not leave the user in an uncertain situations. We have to always comfort the user with guiding that, okay, this is done well. These are the things that you can do, but you can go back to the page of the home page. So like this will ease the workflow. So at any point of time, giving a contextual help as well as a guided flows will ease the experience to the user. Next important thing here on the, especially on the SaaS platform is like UX writing and UX copy. So the previously we have an intent, right? The UX writing and the copy is not part of the UX profession. There is dedicated content writers who take care of that. But that's not true. When you are designing the SaaS applications, you have to be careful with the copies and what you are writing because that is driving the story. So at least because there will be content writers who can improve on top of that what we have written, but the story has to come from the UX designers or the UI designers in the way they represent. So here, right, the content is extremely important thing. And also this, whatever the page that card that you are seeing, right? It's the same card in one of the dashboards is talking about different status. So when the first time onboarded, that card is talking about add a payer and get started kind of an interface way. And we are telling that what he has to do. A payer is someone who pays the benefits of the other parties. So we are giving that context of what he is doing that. When the already added a form or added a recipient and which is in a draft mode, that is nothing is thing. We are telling that one form is in a progress and giving the percentage of completion of that form and giving a contextual nudge to the user. Complete the form that you are filling in is the CTA that we are giving to the user. And once that is form is completed, the same card is turning to give a different contextual information. One form has been created. Now you can create another form. So this is not only it's giving an contextual information and we are changing the KPI related information. So here we need to, how well we can write on the UX is extremely important. Here is just an example that I have taken. But in terms of asking the questions, we can't ask the questions directly, thing like, can you fill this form, like select the user, or if you mention that intent behind why you are asking that question. For that, I can go back to the thing here. Here, how would you like to add your payer? Because instead I can ask that add payer is a directly thing and how you want to proceed. So giving a conversational way of asking the questions will give a personalized feel to the user. So in SaaS application, how personalized your application is, the users are attached to that your product, because that is like the personalization and engagement are extremely important. So the way you ask, the way you respond, the way you show the interface, the way you show the accomplishment, way you show the celebrations after accomplishing a task are important on the SaaS. And the nudging is another things, like how you nudge the user, like to, can you do this, is also, it should not be like showing upfront to the user always. We have to find the right context where that nudge is appropriate and user can't hesitate to click that. So as a designers, we need to think about what is the right context to nudge that kind of information. So the other important aspect, right, because the gamification and personalizations are two different things. Actually, the gamification is different from the personalization. But coming to the gamification is not like the gamifications we are looking when we're designing the SaaS application. Actually, the gamification can be an progress of the work that you have done, or giving an contextual help or contextual information is also part of gamification kind of a thing. In this case, if you see that where I am standing in the journey of that workflow, or giving a progress to the user, that you are in the journey, you have a 5 step, you have done till third step, there is a 2 more steps to left, or telling that, okay, you can complete, you can skip this step, but we will save that as a draft information and we will let you know when you come back again. Or suddenly when the journey has been stopped because of n reasons, maybe power cut or a browser crash or anything, or giving the persistent state where I left the job is also a part of personalization and amount of the gamification concepts. And in the SaaS, right, the two types of SaaS applications typically we work with. One, it can be a B2B SaaS or B2C SaaS, the business to business and business to customers, right? So if you take the second wing, the business to customers, where we don't know the users or user personas, because every time the user will log in, subscribe to the product, and they will do the subscription. It can be a 1 month subscription or a 3 month subscription. They can do the what are the subscription time they want, but they are choose to, the chances of leaving their product is very high because they didn't touch the product. They just want to try the product, that the subscription. If it didn't satisfy, they can leave. Whereas in the B2B applications, one, the management or a company decided that we have to use this product for uh, task management or in Zira management or work management. If someone has taken a decision, this is the tool that you have to use for the design. So that is like the decision, the choice of the tool has been made by the someone else, but actual users of the tool are the employees who has been using that tool. So at the time, because they have no choice, so we have to feel very so empathy with them to that, because that users are going to spend 9 hours on the platform, 8 to 9 hours on a platform on a day-to-day basis to accomplish the task. So at that time, we need to think as a designers. So how can we give a better experience to the user? They should not feel like there's a one more boring application where I have to spend 8 to 9 hours of my time on that to accomplish my task or complete the job. Even though it's a work related thing, how we are going to bring that gamification concepts, personalization concept in relevant to the domain they are working on. Because if someone is a very serious profession and they're working on it, suddenly giving you that spin kind of a will, it won't work. We need to figure out what domain, what gamification is relevant to the work that they are doing. So the ideation, the strategy behind that gamification is extremely important. And the other one, right, as I said, that personalization, giving a state persistent state. For example, I navigated to one particular page. I'm in between the form of completing the journey of an workflow, which is takes like an 3 to 4 hours to complete that scenario. And if I'm in between the things and suddenly something went wrong, when the next time log in and help nudging me or helping me to go to the state where I'm stopped the journey is extremely important in, especially in the SaaS B2B applications, because their workflows are not simple, like adding a cart and doing the transactions there. It's not like that. It's more about the journey. Sometimes for a simple workflow itself, they need days to complete that job. And we need to give help them that where they are and how they are in that scenario or in that context is important. So the personalization is about that. It's not giving a copyright talking to about, hey, Advaita, how are you, or how are you doing, how's your day, hope your everything is fine. That's not the personalization. The personalization in terms of work, helping them where they are and how they are doing and what they can be improved, helping them with some sort of suggestions is also a personalization there. Now, coming to the dashboard, we talked about onboarding dashboard, right? Because the onboarding dashboard is will help the user to decide what to do or how to explore the platform when they first time log into the applications. But once I have started using the application, the onboarding dashboards are boring for the users because it's not talking about any dynamic information. It's so everything is a static there, because just telling that what I can do, how can I explore kind of a thing. But as a designers, we need to take a decision where what is the right time to transform that onboarding dashboard onto a fully loaded dashboard, which talks about the overall health of the application or overall health of the product or the task that I'm responsible for. So there we need to show our the UX and UI approach, how we can engage, what information is relevant for that user or that persona. For example, the data that the VP, the CEO or a VP interested in, and the data that the supervisor or a data provider interested are entirely different. Their use cases are entirely different. So considering the persona, the goals, the responsibilities, we need to come up with what data is more relevant for that persona. So identifying the data relevancy is extremely important from an UX point, and how well we represent the data aesthetical way and in hierarchical way is considering the UI aspect. So here, this is one of the dashboard that we have done. So which is trying to give an overall perspective or health of the application, how it is performing, kind of a thing. It's talking about the one of the store. It's one of the store is talking about how the sales are going on, how the guest experience is, how the providers are nothing but who is the service providers here. So how many are there? What is the utilization percentage? What is the churn rate of the providers? What is the satisfaction rate of the guests here? This dashboard is for an spa industry, focusing on the spa industry, where they have a multiple stores in the location. At a high level, this dashboard is going to convey how that store is performing or that particular branch is performing in terms of sales, in terms of guests, in terms of providers. So that gives a complete picture. So someone, as if a sales manager log in, that KPIs will direct him that or focus on that. Oh, the guest experience is getting down on a weekly basis. So I have to do something to increase that guest satisfaction rate. Or my provider's churn rate is very high. Or my provider's utilization is very less. How can I increase my utilization rate of the thing? So every KPI that we put on the dashboard should have a meaning and should have an insightful information, which will drill down to a further next level of information to see. In this case, if you look into the providers thing, the utilization is talking about 76%. So as a supervisor or as a manager, I want to understand why my utilization is 76%, why it is low. First, I want to try to understand that. So it should be an ability, the KPI should have an ability to drill down to the next level to understand why the utilization. Because of only one provider, couple of providers, or all the provider utilization itself is a 76%. Then something from a management side, I need to take care of that. Similarly, the churn rate, why the employees are keep changing, the providers are keep changing on that branch because of the management is not taking care of them or something is not happening in a right way, what we expected. So that each KPI should trigger an event to the supervisor who looking into the data to take some collective decisions on that. When you come to the next level, the other important aspect is like not only where I am standing, what the health of my, with respect to the competition, or if I'm having a multiple branches, or if I have some targets defined during the beginning of the year or starting of the quarter. So I need to benchmark my current scenario with the target, where I'm standing. Am I aligned with that, or I'm behind or ahead? So these are the things, because the KPIs alone will not define anything there. So we need to give that KPI and the target, or whether they be aligned with our targets or aligned with my competitors or aligned with my benchmarking criteria, whatever I set up during the beginning of the journey. So those are the key things here. Here, the second section, if you see, because everything, right, every dashboard or every product is entirely different. Whatever the things we are talking here, right, with respect to the what are the key aspects that we need to think through when you are designing the application. The one is like when you are designing the fully loaded dashboard or a KPI dashboard, you need to see that value. If you're keeping the KPI, what is the purpose? Is that value driving any decision making thing? If the decision making is not happening with that KPI, then there's no need to keep it on the dashboard because it's not driving me anything anyway, or helping that persona to take any collective decisions. So it is in generic, right? Whatever the KPIs you're thinking about, you need to ask questions. Is that making any value? If I want to have more information, my data is available to provide that additional information about that. If that with that information, can I recommend something? The system can ability to recommend something, because my utilization is not there high, because most of my schedules of the providers are overlapping at the time, most of the overlapping. So the system should suggest that in an innovative way, tell that most of your provider schedules are overlapping, and of your providers are extended to thing in the window of, instead of starting from a 9 to 8 p.m., you can start from 8 to 6 p.m. so that your window will be extended to accommodate more, so that your providers utilizations can be increased to X%. So those are the things. One is like, is that KPI relevant for that persona or not? If yes, then what is the insight that you're bringing to that? If the second one, like looking into that insight, can a system can recommend anything? So these are the three questions that we need to ask when you're doing that KPI or master dashboard. And the second one is like something that you can benchmark where you stand. That also extremely important here. So telling that your storage, this is what I'm telling about recommendations. Your store's guest retention rate has been met the organization average this week. We're telling, and your store average spend has been gone down. So I want to understand why my store average spend has been gone down. So giving a relevant action, which can be lead to a different dashboard, which will give a more why my store average spend has been there. And the other KPI is talking about provider utilization on your store has been met the top quality of this week. So giving an interface like where I am here, whether that what percentage is an increase or a decrease. And if I want to explore the giving a CTA to explore that information. These are the things we need to consider when you are defining the fully loaded dashboard or a KPI dashboard. Now, right, this also falls under the value and the support system, the contextual help. So here, the one of the scenario that we have is like every time in most of the SaaS applications, right, we always bounded with some limitations. So when the before committing the mistake or raising the error, for example, you know that the mobile number should have, if it is in India, the mobile number should have a 10-digit number. If you know that criteria, if the user enter 9 digits, you need to alert them upfront. You have the whatever you entered is an invalid number. Instead of waiting till enter the number and hitting on the login button, then throwing the error, the mobile number is invalid, that unnecessarily we are allowing the user to commit the mistake, right? So in the same way, in the same context, right, whenever in this case, there is some sort of tin verifications or the match numbers will be there. So telling that you have expired, whatever the package that you are binded with, those are expired right now. You don't, whatever you are initiating now or requesting now will have some cost involved in it. So we are upfront telling the user there is a cost involvement is there. And we are telling that what is that cost implies. And also we are giving a quick contextual interface to the user where they can explore the plans like a smart packs. Instead of going again to a different context and recharging my plan and coming back to this thing and doing the things, we are giving a contextual and seamless flow to the user where they can do the action immediately right after that. So most of the people you have been experienced, right? When doing the payments on the Paytm and the wallet have an insufficient fund, they never told you to go and first recharge your wallet and come and do the transactions. In the same workflow itself, they're giving an interface to load your balance and then payment. So that is what the experience. Wherever there is a possibility, we need to give a seamless experience or a seamless journey to the user. That is a critical because the journeys of the users are extremely important on the SaaS design. Now, the last one, it's not that because one of the points that I want to highlight is like the SaaS, right? The behavior of the SaaS, we don't know what the user is coming from. So we have to give an interface where they can quickly search for the intent of the thing. So there are a lot more such behaviors. There are elastic search or a page level search, whatever it may be. So we need to have, and the application should have a search is a mandatory for any SaaS application. Either it can be a page level search or application level search. That depends upon the context and depend upon the product usage, we can take a call. But search has to be there. Sometimes the search will lead to an advanced search where the basic capability of the search is to find something, but you can, on top of that, you can apply some filter to tone down that search results. So the search is also one of the key aspects that we have to consider while designing the application. Yeah. So because whatever we discussed so far are the not the guidelines or not a rules to be followed here. These are the just the guidelines you can consider as when while you are designing the SaaS application, right? Because every SaaS product, every SaaS requirement is completely different from another. Even though it looks similar, but how they operate, how they execute, how they define the USP or from the stakeholders is going to be different. So whatever points we discuss, just we need to question ourselves. The are we provide any value? How quickly can contextual help to question ourselves when we are designing the SaaS application? So these are not the rules that everyone has to follow, but these are the guidelines to be considered while designing the SaaS applications. Right. These are the things that I want to convey, friends, in this session. I'm open for the questions. If you have any questions, you can please ask.
Yes, for Q&A, there were You guys can raise your hands if you have any questions and we'll unmute you. You can further go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, Naveen.
Yeah, hi. So I had a query. So there was one page where it was told that when you're navigating a user from one page and you give him some options, right? So you don't just make the user click on the back button. Rather, you give him three options. You go back. This seems to be a really good example for a web. So is there an alternative for a mobile?
For mobile interface, Naveen, you're asking?
Yeah.
So the mobile interface, right? The navigation, it depends upon sometimes most of the mobile applications, we give the primary upfront navigations on the either bottom or a hamburger menu. But it depends upon how many levels that you created from that page. For example, there is a list page. It can be an user list or it can be an order list. That is a level 0, we call it as. And what is the level 1 information is getting the details out of it, that level 1. And the next level is like, I'm going to see that my transact history of that order, how it's going. So when you are at a different levels, so if it is a one level, you can always use a back arrow to come out. But if you're giving more than a level 1, we need to see an alternative patterns. It need not to be a breadcrumb based or a back arrow. It can be an overlay altogether, giving a context, because that's the third level of giving. And most recommended patterns is not more than 2 levels are recommended on any navigation thing. If it is a more than 2 levels, then something that is not right with the navigation patterns. We need to think that is there any other better way to represent the data on a contextual way? It can be an overlay or a pop-up. Because in the most of the application, I can think like only one step back they will give to go to the previous step. If that is the case, if you're 3 levels down, in order to come to the home page, I need to make 2 more clicks. Additionally, the user has to do that thing. So typically to avoid those things, we recommend one level down, or we need to give an home option of else on the page. If that is the whatever the workflow like stepper we have considered, right? If it is a 5-step stepper on a web page, we can't make the same 5-step stepper on the mobile. We need to come up with a different pattern altogether. What works on the web won't work on the mobile. The our mobile, it has to be adaptable to the form factor that we are selecting. It's not like a pure response to Naveen. We have to see an alternative pattern thing. If you're talking about the stepper that we have 5 step to complete on a web, if it is coming to the mobile, how it look like, then we have to think about a different alternative pattern for that. Yeah, Naveen.
Yeah, that was brilliant actually. So currently I'm facing the issues where I'm shifting my web design into web application design to mobile application. So these are that part which you explained was brilliant, but I'm just figuring out breadcrumbs didn't work out. Back button, I'm currently stuck to bottom navigation, bringing the users back to wherever I want them to be. I just thought
Yeah,
maybe
Naveen.
a
One suggestion, right? One suggestion, right? Because that is a typical thing, right? When the web application designs are finalized, we try to stick to that patterns. So, but typically in adapt to, right, we need to see that if something is not going to work on the mobile, we need to see that what is the other alternative pattern that I can use here for mobile. If you think in the directions, we might be having a different thoughts to solve that problem.
okay, okay. Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks, Naveen.
yeah. Thanks a lot. Great work.
Any more questions? Anybody else? Ujjwal has raised his hand.
Yeah.
Uh, Hi Rakesh. I have a question. Like, what are the opportunities except for the graphs and pie charts to make the dashboard more personalized and intuitive for a platform while designing for a SaaS product?
Ujjwal, to answer your question, Ujjwal, the graphs are not mandatory for the dashboards. Because you need to think in the way, right? What is the purpose of the dashboard? Because I might be the entire application, or I'm responsible for 10 different tasks on an entire portal. So dashboard is giving a summary view for me. So you need to think that how well that you can give, summarize the product and tell about the overall health. Telling boss everything on your platform or in your task responsible is going fine, no need to worry. And just highlighting me that, okay, these are the focus areas. Everything is going fine, but you have to focus on these three tasks or these three areas or three workflows. So application letting me know that where to focus on, how to resolve that is the most important for me, instead of throwing the too many graphs. And it's again increasing the cognitive load. Showing a graph along with the insightful information and what I can act on it will make more sense instead of throwing the graphs to me. So when you are putting any data on the graphs, right, dashboards, right, we need to think about, okay, is it the visualization is the only way to represent the data, or do we have any other better visualization to represent that? The data what you represent in a pie chart can also be represented in a bar chart or a stacked bars or any other representation thing. But you need to understand, is that persona able to consume the data with that visualization or not? If you feel that the persona is not technical enough to understand that visualization, you need to come up with another alternative way to represent the data. Because the pie, right, the choice of the pie, if they're more, the segment is less than 1% or 2%, it's very hard to hover or it's highlight that color sector. That's the reason. In that case, if the chances of getting that zero probability or less than 2% on a pie, you have to go other alternative pattern is going with a bar or a stacked kind of a thing, or giving a different way, instead of showing a bar, giving a KPI based interface to the user. So when you have the data, you need to see that how this data can be represented well to the user, so that that persona can easily consume the data. And showing the only the facts, right? In the previous 4 years back, 5 years back, we don't have that intelligence systems to tell that how can I work with the data. But our now, considering the AI capabilities and all, right, Ujjwal, uh, we can facts, anyone knows what happening on the application looking into the data. But how can I use that fact to change that thing, but state? Because telling that something your ROI is getting down, I know that because my numbers are talking about that. But how can I increase my ROI? Or how can I increase my adoption rate? How can I increase my churn rate? If you are able to tell that, that would be great. Or you're telling that my churn rate has been gone down, but what will I do? What percentage it was getting down? Is a 5% down or a 10% down, or with what time factor compared to the last quarter or last financial year? So there are a lot more. Showing the only one number will not solve or will not help me to take any decision as a user. So you need to consider with that number, what are the supporting information that are needed, you have to consider. But the dashboard is not always the graphs, visual. Just I want to correct that perception there. Just dashboard is to guide me, tell the overall health of the application, and help me to guide where to focus on. That is the intent of the dashboard. Did I answer your question, Ujjwal?
Okay, we hope yes. And also, there's a question in chat. Guru Datta has asked, what is churn rate?
Churn rate is like the percentage of customers dropping from the platform is the churn rate. So because why the people will drop off from an application? For example, the subscription models, SaaS application, right? Everyone want to try the product. Even though SaaS, most of the applications will give a free trial to us to explore the application or a product. But in the free trial also, we have a limited usage to access to certain functionality, not to the 100% they will provide an access. But once you get an access to that application and you worked on, some people are dropping from that application means our intent, their intent, why they subscribe to the product or not met, or they feel like the experience that we are giving to the user when doing the task is not aligned with their expectations. So we need to understand the churn rate happening, churn rate is very high on the platform means something is wrong with the product. Either it can be inside the application or inside the product in terms of experience or anything, or it can be an external also, maybe the support system. For example, someone has raised a ticket, no one is there to address the ticket, that will also impact the churn rate. I'm not telling that purely UX and UI is responsible for the churn rate. I'm telling that with the help of the UX and UI, we can increase the churn, we can decrease the churn rate is what I'm trying to tell. That can be one of the aspect, because you are able to understand what the customer asks. If you're able to tell him that what he has to do next, if you're able to summarize the entire things and giving an insightful information to the user, they usually stick to the product. Once you love one product, right, the chances of moving away from the product is very high. The first impression, right, whatever you get when you meet a person, what are the impression you get first when you meet a person or talk to a person, that will last for a longer time. The same thing with the product, because the decisions, right, what the people will take will happen in the first 1 month or first couple of days itself. They log into the application, they try the product. If something is not satisfying, they quickly see that is there any other product doing the similar kind of a service? I will move away. So the attention or grabbing the users or engaging the users has to be very high. That can be done only with the UX and UI. So that's the reason we bring the churn rate concept here, that directly proportional. But there are some other cases, even how well your user experience is, how well your product, but backend support system is not well, the functionality is breaking in between, the people will obviously leave. That's another aspect, but we don't need to worry about that thing now. I hope I answered Guru Datta's question.
Yes, now we have two more participants raising their hands, Shashank and Mayank.
Hi, Rakesh.
Hey, Shashank.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So my question was, now when we are designing, right? Now, assuming that it was a situation where I wanted to add a new feature, right?
Mhm.
So when I'm adding this feature, there is this understanding that the user might not use that feature at all. So
Mhm.
there is this idea of a feature blindness. So how can we, is there any, tips that you would like to give how to avoid feature blindness?
First of all, how do you know that the feature is not going to be used by the user? Because generally, right, we prioritize the feature, because that's the beauty of the SaaS application, Shashank. So we are not bombarding user with all the actions what the platform is performing. If you really understand that persona and you know that this persona is going to do these tasks, then you won't even consider that. Even though it's a part of the entire product, but that feature is not relevant to that persona at all. So first we need to understand that persona will, and the second one is like you feel like the persona uses that feature, but frequency of using that feature is very less. In that context, if you feel like the usage will be only 5% on a monthly basis, or in the usage, if you do that 10 tasks, the usage will be 0.2%. If you know that, then we can hide that feature. Need not to be upfront on the screen talking about there is a feature called X and you need to use that, because that is not a frequently used action, right? We can hide that, and we have to learn, let him know that where that feature is. But whenever he want that thing, it has to be available to the user. That's the one thing that we have to consider, Shashank. It's need not, because persona based CTAs are we can do on SaaS applications. No need to bombard them with all the capabilities of the application.
Yeah, understood. Thanks, Rakesh. Thank you.
Next we have Mayank.
Good evening, Rakesh. So, my question was, how important is UX writing, and what direct and indirect impact does it have on churn rate for particularly SaaS-based platforms?
Sorry, Mayank, can you repeat your question?
So, Rakesh, I was asking that how important is UX writing, and what direct and indirect impact does it have on churn rate for
Yeah.
particularly SaaS-based platforms?
Thanks for asking this question, Mayank, because the UX writing is very important on a SaaS application. As I said, right, the personalized feel, because until unless you put it like you are asking a question to the particular person, right, they are engaged to that context. So I can ask the same question, right? Because with a simple, if you see the previous 4 years, 5 years box forms, right? Everything is like name, first name, last name, this thing. Because that the people are bored with that, because they never feel like it's generic way of asking, and it's like a generic is not intended for me, so I'm forced to do that. But if you change the context, if you change the tone, hey, can you do this, or giving a conversational way, that kind of, when I read that sentence, right, I feel like it was asking me, you're personally asking me that question. So its writing will play a major role, even though I'm not intended to do that particular action, or I'm not, but the place where you bringing that contextual nudge, right, that will motivate me, because the context is relevant, very well relevant to upgrade my package, and your copy is telling that why that is needed. So the engagement rate is very high when your copy is rich on a SaaS application. It's very directly proportional to the your churn rate. Might I answer your question?
Yes, Rakesh. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
One last question is one from Madhuvarsh on chat. How to build a roadmap to scale SaaS platforms from a design standpoint?
Yeah, this is also the Madhu. Thanks for asking this question. The scalability is the bigger aspect on the SaaS design, right? Because when we start the SaaS journey, we don't know the scalable, how scale we can build a product. Because we thought initially it can be reach out to in the next 3 months. We try to ask the question to the stakeholders: what is your next 3 years plan or a 5 years plan? Sometimes they might be having a visibility that in the next 5 years, I want to explore my product into 3 different countries. I want to reach out to some extent of customers. Those are the roadmaps that we have. But sometimes we don't expect. Sometimes that numbers will be goes to twice or double that what they expected. They want to grow their business. Suddenly the customer base has been increased. So we need to understand from it, while designing the SaaS, we need to clearly define our roadmap in a such a way that our application is scalable to these things, where we can accommodate currently 50 customers without any performance lag or without any design break and everything. But if that scenario occurs, we need to have an alternative strategy that need not to be going the phase one of the design work that what we are working on. So we have to put it in our roadmap, telling that this is a phase where I'm focusing on the MVP related features, where I am targeted, where what is the good time to go to market, because what are the features are minimum needed to package it, and so that I can quickly validate my idea with the people. So that is the MVP stage is the one. Second one is the growth stage, we call it, as where on top of the MVP, they're building the new set of features or enhancing the existing features so that it's ready to go to market, kind of a thing. The next one is where we talk about the scalability aspects. How can we scale the designs? It will come under the version 1, 2.0 kind of a thing. So those also will discuss in the initial discovery phase when we are working with the client. We clearly show that this is what you're thinking in the discovery phase. We tell that MVP, we are coming with these features. In the phase 1, we want to go with this, which enhance these things. And in the 2.0, we are going to want to go with these things, because we are the right person to define what is the basic features are needed for the user to go live. So from our side, we will define the what are the feature roadmap. Then the client or a stakeholder will come up with the dates on top of that calendar dates when they are expecting and those things.
I hope that answered your question, Madhuvarsh. We're running out of time, but still, I hope we can accommodate just one more question. It's from Rahul. Hello, Rakesh. Even in a SaaS product that caters to relatively less serious users, is it ever a good idea to have a digital mascot to guide users on user onboarding, etc.?
I'm reading the SaaS product, okay, relatively less serious users. So that's Rahul. Yeah, the SaaS, right, as we discussed, the SaaS is not only for the B2C, because there is no serious or less serious kind of a user. If you are going with an B2B enterprise SaaS applications, there is no choice for them. Even though they're not interested to use the product, they have to use. But it's our responsibility, right? When they're first time using that tool, giving that the guided or telling that what is the future meant for is important. That's the reason most of our things will have that it's not a mandatory action that user has to go through. Most of the things they will have a skip option to do that. But there are some applications, especially in the SaaS also we have some applications where they have to go to that nudges or information. That's a mandatory. For example, there are some the guidelines they have to accept or terms they have to accept. There is no excuse. It's not like an coach mark or kind of a thing. It's the where that is needed because they have to accept where it's a mandatory step that user can do. And another way of doing that is like when they're performing the intended action, because in the onboarding flow, I don't want to bombard them with terms, lot of terms and conditions and guidelines to be accepted before working on that. When they're doing the particular transaction or a particular activity or an action, in that context, I can able to bring that information for that acceptance. So what I want to tell is that there is no less serious or a more serious. That depends upon the what type of application that we are building. It's a B2C or a B2B. In case of B2C, definitely we need to educate because they're the first time users and they're coming to the platform for the first time. They don't know where the actions are.
Thank you so much, Rakesh sir. Yes.
Yeah.
That was a very informative session. A lot of us are beginners, and you started all the way from basics of helping us understand what a SaaS product is, and then taking us through the advantages of this model, and then the best practices to follow while designing one. Thank you so much for your time and graciously accepting the invite. I hope we answered all your questions, guys. And we will also be sharing Rakesh's LinkedIn profile in chat. So all of you, for those of you who want to connect with him after the session can also do. And also do follow the Figma community in all the socials. You can go to the website friends.figma.com and also join the community and collaborate with many more creative people in the coming days. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.